Hi everyone, welcome to the SAP Community Call about how to use SAP Business Application Studio to develop cloud-native applications powered by SAP Cloud SDK. We have Jordan Dukadinov today with us. Jordan, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Moshe. Hello from my side. I'm Jordan from the Cloud SDK team, and my role is developer advocate. So I work a lot with customers and partners, and I will be happy to show you some interesting things today, especially related to SAP Business Application Studio and Cloud SDK. Before we get started, as usual, our forward-looking statement. Please make your buying or purchasing decisions based on what's officially available and not based on some content that I might show today in this presentation. This is not an official announcement of anything. I'm just showing you things for demonstration purposes here. First of all, let me give you a brief overview of what happened in the last weeks and what keeps happening in the SAP Cloud SDK universe. As usual, we have our two components, our Java library and JavaScript library. And on the Java side, we are doing some more improvements, especially one of the important highlights from the last versions is that now we are able to define custom headers in when connecting to destinations, and this is realized using the so-called header provider classes. For more details, you can click the link later and have a look at our release notes, how exactly to do this. But for your information now, you can define any kind of headers, especially when connecting to HTTP destinations, of course. And secondly, something also very interesting. A lot of people were asking us, hey, here is a feature XYZ. Is it supported on the Java side and on the JavaScript side as well? And to answer this question, we have created the so-called feature matrix. I'm just clicking the link to show you very briefly how it looks like. So it's posted on our documentation portal here. And here you can see like the two components, Java and JavaScript, and the features here. And this is how we represent this. For most of the features, we already have some docs or some examples available where you can click the link, or we have some comments if something is not supported, if it will be supported or not, if it's on our roadmap or if it's covered by some other library. So this is a good starting point. You can find it as usual on our documentation portal. If you go to the title page and click somewhere, let's click Java, for example, then you can use the search field here and so on. Yeah, this is the one you take, or you can, of course, click the link on our slides that you will get later. On the JavaScript side, we are working hardly to bring our open API generator to a final state where we can declare it stable. Currently, it's in beta state, so beware. If you have JavaScript, you can already play with it and try out different things. But APIs might change because they're not declared stable by the development team. Just for information, for Java, we have a stable version of the Open API generator, allowing the generation of REST clients for connecting to REST services. And very soon it will be also released for JavaScript. This is where the main team efforts go at the moment. All right, what I will talk about today First of all, we will be talking about SAP Business Application Studio a lot. And here I want to tell you that I'm not part of this team, so I won't be able to answer any kind of roadmap questions and so on. I will be showing a lot of demo. So main part of this session will be a demo part where I will be using the Business Application Studio. Last but not least, I have prepared a repository for you where you can have a look and have very detailed instructions on how to try out the things that I will show today. So everything that you'll see today will be also doable by anyone with public access to the internet. Okay, first, let's talk about what the Cloud IDE is. As mentioned, this is a brief theoretical introduction, I would say. First of all, we have our IDEs, which is an integrated development environment, in case someone wonders. But any developer might be very familiar with IDEs. They run on your local laptop, usually, or desktop, if you have desktop, of course. And they rely heavily on some other tools that are installed locally, like Git, different build tools like Maven or Gradle or NPM, if you are using Node.js, and all the other tools that make the developers' lives easy. And some examples of such IDEs are Eclipse, IDEA, or VS Code, or many others, you name it. And I know every developer has its favorite, so I don't want to state my opinion here. Sometimes it's a religion war, if Eclipse or IntelliJ is better, or VS Code. So I'm perfectly fine with everything. You can develop everything with every IDE, or almost everything. Now, if we have a look at Cloud IDEs, there are a few things that need to be understood. First of all, they run on some kind of remote machine, right? Because they run on the cloud. We have our browser and we access some kind of front end that looks like an IDE, which might be Eclipse or VS Code and so on. Probably Business Application Studio will look quite similar like VS Code, like we'll see in a few moments. Secondly, since we are working on the cloud, we obviously cannot install any kind of tools there. We need to rely on what's pre-installed. So at some point of time, when we decide to start working with the Cloud IDE, we need to select or to choose the tools that we will work with. We need to define it somehow. I'll show how this works in the SAP Business Application Studio. And last but not least, the word local has another meaning here because it's not local for your laptop anymore. Of course, when we say local, we mean the machine on the cloud that's running somewhere in a data center that runs the IDE actually. You'll get a feeling for this when I show it in the demo, but just beware when you read somewhere about some local things in a context of a cloud IDE, that local does not necessarily mean local to your laptop. And last but not least, I want to at least mention a topic that causes a lot of confusion. We have the SAP Web Ide as a product, and we have the SAP Business Application Studio as a product. So these are two products, and as mentioned, I'm not part of any of these teams, but SAP Business Application Studio is the newer one. So if you just get started with trying out things and learning new things, then I would personally recommend you to start with SAP Business Application Studio and only use the Web IDE if you need some kind of tools that are not available in the Business Application Studio. Again, this is not an official recommendation. This is my personal recommendation from developer to you as developers. If you are a partner or a customer of SAP and you have partner access to the SAP Cloud Platform or customer access, you might need to talk to your SAP contact to get access to these tools. And having said that, let me directly jump into the demo part. For this, I'm opening my browser because, as mentioned, we are in the cloud, so everything we need is actually a browser. First of all, where are these tools? Where is the SAP Business Application Studio? To show this, I have logged in. Let me maybe refresh this page so that I'm really logged in into my SAP Cloud Platform cockpit. You hopefully have already seen it. If not, there is an account structure here. So once you create an account, which might be a trial account, if you don't have one, you have a thing called global account here, which is most likely your company or your organization. And then there are a lot of sub accounts, 48 in my case. And here I'm looking at my, let's call it personal sub account, where I want to show you the demos. But it's important to understand that you need to be on the sub account level in order to find the Business Application Studio easily. Just as a side note, if you do not have an SAP Cloud Platform trial account, you can simply Google for that. And it will get you right to the registration form. Quite easy. You need a phone number to activate it. And then you have, I think, 1 month to play. Once you are in your account, you can review what's there. There are a lot of different things. And one of the menu points here is the service marketplace. So on a conceptual level, the SAP Cloud Platform comes with a lot of tools that are mostly offered to clients as a service. So if we click the service marketplace, here we see a lot of things. Mostly we have things that make the DevOps life easier. Like you see, there are kind of logging tools or autoscaler or different other things. And one of these things is the Business Application Studio. So the easiest way to find it is simply write business here in the search field, and then you see the Business Application Studio tile. So if we click on it, so you see that I already have one active subscription. And this is what I was talking about. If you have a company account and you don't find anything here, then you might need to talk to the administrator or to your SAP contact, because your account might not be enabled to use this. But lucky for me, I am able to use it. And if I click on the 3 dots here on the right, I can say go to application. And here I'm already in the Business Application Studio. And by the way, this operation is very standard. So for example, if you decide to use any other tool, let's get back to the marketplace for a moment. Let's say you want to have some audit log viewer. Let's see if, so I don't have an active subscription here, so you see how it looks like. And here, of course, I don't have go to application. But if I were creating a subscription here, then it would become active. And then here I would say, I would have this menu entry go to application. So this is a universal way of accessing tools that are delivered on the SAP Cloud Platform. Now back to the Application Studio. Here I'm logging in with my account that I'm using to log into the SAP Cloud Platform, which is most likely a company email address, but it might be also something else. And of course, the password. It's good to have a secure password so that you don't need to worry about bad things. And now I see the title of this application called SAP Business Application Studio. By the way, I can also log out. So here I'm in a separate world. So it's kind of related with the Cloud Platform Cockpit. But you can simply bookmark this link and then access the Business Application Studio directly. And probably this is what most of the developers would do. So simply bookmark, and then you won't need to log into the Cloud Platform Cockpit and so on. Now, first I need to create a dev space. This is the only button that I have. And luckily, this is the only operation that I need to do before starting to code. Let me create a dev space. And here you see that first I need to define a name. Let's call it demo space, for example, 1. And here I have another selection. So you see that things are changing on the right. And this is exactly the tool set. I already mentioned that when working on the cloud, of course, we are not under control what exactly to install at any time. And here is the moment where I choose what kind of tools I want to have in my IDE. And I'm just selecting full stack application for this demo and stay with the defaults. But of course, depending on what kind of application you want to develop, you might need to select something different. And when I have done this, I need to wait a few seconds, because right now what's happening in the background, virtual machine is getting started up with my own instance of the Business Application Studio of my IDE, and all the tools that I just selected are being installed. Usually it only takes a few seconds. And of course, the good news is if you develop every day, then you don't need to create a space every day, of course. Then you will have your space and you only need to enter this space. And now while I was talking, you see that it turned into running state. And now I can click on the name and enter my private Business Application Studio instance. And like I promised you, it looks quite similar like the VS Code IDE. We have all the tools here on the left and so on. Now, what will you do if you are a developer and want to start coding? You can either create a project here, or you can decide to clone something and develop. Let's go for the second way. Here I have your homework repository that I will share with you later, which is on github.com, so everyone can access it. And I just copied the clone URL here. So don't confuse it with the browser URL because it won't work. And now here I can do a lot of things, as you see. I'm choosing clone from Git. And when I click it, text field appears here on the top. So I need to get used to it. A lot of things will open up some text boxes here on the top. Don't wonder why nothing happens. Actually, it happens here. Now it needs the repository URL. Let me paste the URL and hit enter. And now if we have a look here below, you see that actually I did a git clone of my repository into a directory. So what we have here below is a very regular Unix terminal. So here I could do things like ls or pwd and all other cool things. And here, of course, I could also do some other git clones. So, I mean, if I wanted to clone some other repositories, I could do it directly here from the terminal. And now, the first thing you need to understand, if my repository here was private, then obviously I would need some kind of authentication. It would work, but it would ask me here for the password. So it's a very regular git clone that you are used to from any terminal. And an important thing to consider here, since we are in the internet, so my IDE is now somewhere in the cloud. In order to clone things, the repository that I want to clone needs to be accessible from the internet. This is important to know because sometimes you have your corporate network or any kind of other private networks and they are not accessible from the internet. So the clone will not work. This is an important thing to consider. Okay, next I will go to the Workspaces section, and this is exactly the workspace concept of VS Code. I don't want to explain too much. Here I'm seeing my cloned repository. As you already might have understood, it's our TechEd demo. Yeah, so TechEd 2020 from December, and I'm just using this directory as a workspace. So if you want to understand more about this workspace concept, you can Google for the workspace concept for VS Code. This is exactly the same. Okay, now I will close my welcome screen and I will focus on the Explorer view. So here on the left, we have the Explorer view that also all developers are familiar with that have worked with VS Code. And as you might already know from the Pom Xml, I'm having a Maven project here. And the first thing I want to do with the Maven project, I want to see if it kind of compiles or builds. And for that, what do I want to do? I want to run Maven. In order to run Maven, I'm going to the terminal menu and opening a new terminal. And this is exactly the same window that we were using for git clone a few minutes ago. And now I see that it's already activating my workspace directory. So if I say ls, I'm seeing exactly the same things that I see here in the Explorer view. One of them is the Pom XML, and now let's run Maven. So Maven is already pre-installed. And if you remember the choice when I was creating the dev space and selecting the tools, Maven was one of these tools. That's why, and Git, by the way, as well. And that's why I'm able to run Maven package. And if I'm doing it, now it feels like local, right? This is exactly what would happen on your machine. And we are happy that we are successful. Of course, if I run it again, it won't be downloading all these jars. So it behaves exactly like your local machine. And actually, this is local, but not that kind of local, not your laptop. It's local for the from the perspective of your Business Application Studio instance. Okay, so now I have built my application, but I want to see what it does, right? So if you switch to our TechEd repository and scroll down a little bit, there is a small description. You can read what the application does, but I will tell you this to save some time here. And here are somewhere below at the end of the page, we have this exercises section that you can actually try out yourself. So all these exercises will work from the public network. You don't need to be on the SAP network for that. And the first exercise is actually deploying the Webshop. So you already see that it's a Webshop. First, we have set up the IDE and so on. This is what we did. Here again, the explanation. And now we are here. Run the Webshop in our IDE. Here are some explanation, but maybe the most important line is this one. So what we have here is a Spring Boot application, and that's why we are able to run it using MVN Spring Boot run. So like any other Spring Boot application, this is also runnable using this command. And for that, of course, we need to change into the application subdirectory. Let's have a look at the Business Application Studio. So here we obviously don't have a Maven Java project. But if we have a look into the application directory, we see that we have source and target, and it gets kind of familiar to every Java developer. It's getting even more familiar if you expand the directories. So yeah, here you see already some Java classes. So this is the Java application that we want to run. And for that, I will switch into this directory. And run the Spring Boot run command, like described here. Okay, now you see that it's not downloading anything because I already did Maven package. So compilation is pretty fast. Okay, and now you see that something happened. A service is listening to port 8080. Click expose and open to access the service externally. Now, this is also a very important thing to understand. I'm running the application not on my laptop. I'm running it on the internet, right? So if I click expose and open, nothing happens. But as I already mentioned, very often in VS Code, things are happening here at the top of the screen in the middle. In this case, I don't need to do anything except of hitting enter. Okay, now I see that a URL is loading. And I don't have something like port 8080 and so on. Usually on my laptop, I would have localhost port 8080. But here it's mapped to another URL. And this happens automatically. So this happened behind the scenes. And it was exactly this message of Business Application Studio. Unfortunately, it disappeared now. But if you remember, it was saying service is opening up port 8080. Do you want to expose it and open it in a new tab? And this is exactly what I have done here. So my local run runs locally, but locally on the cloud because it's local from my SAP Business Application Studio instance point of view. Okay, this is how to start applications. And another similarity, here the application still runs. I already closed the browser tab, so I have a problem now. If I want to access the application, I don't have the link to it anywhere. But if you are using a modern browser, then you have a shortcut on the keyboard to open the recently closed tab. So, I mean, if you have Mac, it's Command Shift and T. On Windows, I think it's Control Shift and T. And if I'm hitting this shortcut, it will open up the last closed tab. So this is just as a hint from my side, if you occasionally close the tab and don't want to restart the application. Of course, you can also use the menu and check history or something like this. Yeah, but I mean, you need to rely on the browser functionality here. I don't know any other way. And once I'm done with that, I can, of course, say Control C on the keyboard, and guess what? It's ending the process. So if I open up the tab again, I see that nothing happens now because I terminated the application. So this is how starting applications locally works on the Business Application Studio. All right, let's review some more things. I hope that you already get the feeling how it works. If we had Node.js, of course, I would have NPM here, but pretty similar developer experience. All right. As mentioned later, I will share this link with you, and I will invite you to follow these instructions, because let's get one screen back. You see what the exercises are doing. We have this skeleton of the Webshop, and first exercise is to load products from SAP S/4HANA Cloud. Don't worry, you don't need S/4HANA Cloud for that. We have taken care of it. The second exercise is to place an order. And then third exercise is to use SAP promotion pricing. Okay, let's maybe do the third exercise, because it's probably the hardest one. Now, what's the difference between exercise 1, 2, between these two exercises and between exercise 3? The difference is that exercise 1 and 2 are accessing SAP S/4HANA Cloud. So you see that we are loading products from there, and we are placing the order with SAP S/4HANA Cloud. And the third one is connecting to SAP promotion pricing. As you probably know, the SAP Cloud SDK brings the client library for accessing S/4HANA Cloud out of the box, which means that you only need to include the dependency into your Pom.xml, and you're good to start coding. But if you want to access a service that we are not providing out of the box, like the SAP promotion pricing, you have this generation step here. So you see that it's generate the client library, and this step is only part of this exercise. The other exercise directly start with implement the logic, right? Implement the products controller and implement the orders controller. And here we have the generation step, and then we implement. And usually generation happens on the local machine or on Jenkins or any kind of other automated build system. And it's also possible to be executed on the Business Application Studio, because the goal here is, of course, that it feels like a local machine for the developer. And here we have described some different steps how to generate the client library. Let me do this quickly. I'm changing to the SAP API Business Hub. This is our catalog of services and API specifications for different SAP products. And here I'm already in the calculation service of SAP promotion pricing. This is because I clicked the link in the exercise. And what I need to do here is to download this specification using this button. But before I do that, I need to log on. So here you would use your SAP credential. I'm logged in already because I have a certificate. Of course, in your case, you would probably need to enter the password. And then I'm able to download the specification as JSON or as YAML file. Let's take the YAML one. And you see that now it's on my local machine. And now it's on my local machine from my laptop's perspective, right? Because here I'm working on my laptop and I've downloaded this into my downloads directory. So if I want to run the generation here, I obviously need to do something, right? I need to download the file from this instance, or I need to upload the file somehow from my local laptop. And all these steps are described here on GitHub. So first step is to open the Business Hub and download the file. And then second step is to upload the file into the cloud instance. From the one local, meaning my laptop, I will upload to the other local, meaning my Cloud IDE. This is important to understand. This is again the two locals here, meaning different things. And now let's quickly do that. I'm here in my application. Actually, I could do it using the terminal. So let's see what the instruction says. It says create a new subdirectory called API specs within the application folder. Okay, here I am in the application folder, and let me just do the mkdir command. Let's see if it appeared here. Yeah, it already appears here. If it didn't appear, I would probably need to refresh here. So yeah, sometimes this refresh button is good to, it's good that it's here because sometimes things do not work out that smoothly. Okay, and okay, I would also do it by right-clicking on the application folder, as you see here. And now right-click the new directory and select upload files. This is what I will do using right-click. Of course, I could also do some kind of wget here or curl and download the file directly, but as I need to log into the API Business Hub, it's not that easy to simply wget from here. So the easiest way is really to do it like this. And usually, I mean, I'm doing it for demo purpose now. Usually you would probably check this into your Git repository or do it some kind of in an automated manner. So remember that this is only for the demo purpose to for your understanding of the Web IDE. Okay, price calculation. And you see here, I already uploaded the file. And now I'm ready for the next step. Okay, the next step is to run a Maven plugin, which is being run using this configuration. And here you see a few things. This is the Cloud SDK REST generator. we are providing some input file, which is the price calculation.yaml file that I just uploaded. And some other configurations here, and we provide the output directory, which is somewhere. So this is Cloud SDK. And if you want to learn more on the REST generator of the Cloud SDK, you can visit our documentation portal for more details on what's possible here. But now let's simply copy this configuration. Now it needs to be copied into a Pom XML. And if you are already experienced with Maven, you probably will never confuse the two Pom XMLs here. You see that I have one here in the main level and one here in the application directory. So if you are new to Java development and Maven, you need to find the right one. In this case, it's the one in application. It's the Java one. Let's make a little space. And I will scroll somewhere down. Yeah, probably this is a good place here. So I'm just pasting the content over from the GitHub instruction. As mentioned, you can do exactly the same if you decide to follow our instructions. Or you can decide to study in more detail what's happening here. That I would also recommend, because this is our new open API generator for REST. Okay, now I have this configuration here, and now next thing I need to do is only, okay, this is how it looks like, pretty similar to my own instance here. You see, this is a screenshot from here. Okay, now next one is simply to run a standard Maven command, exactly like you would do on your local laptop. Now, if you're not familiar with Maven, you probably will simply copy paste from the first shot. If you wonder where these things come from, generate PP client, for example, can be found here in the, sorry for that. I didn't want to click here. Can be found here in the execution ID. Generate PP client and so on. These are Maven specific things, so nothing SAP specific here. So yeah, but what I wanted to say, now it's again a very local invocation that will run on the cloud local, on the Business Application Studio. All right. Let's try out if it will work. So I'm still in the application directory, so it's the right directory here for the terminal. And I'm running this command. Cool, now it succeeded. And according to my configuration, I have my base directory, and somewhere in my base directory, I would expect to find a package named SAP Cloud SDK generated promo pricing. So let's have a look if we have it here. Source main Java, standard for Maven, and then we have SAP Cloud SDK generated promo pricing. So this is where it actually generated my Java classes. And here, for example, in API, I have my entry point. I don't want to dive into very much details here. We had another session on Open API and REST generators. So if you're interested in details, you can have a look for the recording of this session. What I can tell you in this moment is that this generated client library here is pretty similar to the Open API generator. So if you have used the Open API generator to generate client libraries for REST services, then it will be quite easy for you to use this one. So it's very close to the standard, to the open source standard of Open API. But it's enriched a little bit. So for example, if you want to instantiate this class, then you can provide a destination. So this thing here is SAP Cloud SDK. And as you might know, the destination is actually the pointer to the remote system. So it's not only containing the URL, it's also containing any kind of custom headers if they're required, or authentication or other things. And if we have a look at our exercise again, next step would be to implement the logic. So now we have generated the client library, which is the Java classes. And next would be to implement the logic. So I don't want to copy this over to the IDE, but I want to show you here how it feels like. So first of all, you obviously have the destination, which is one piece of sugar in addition to the classic plain open API. And you pass this destination to the Open API class here, or to this instance. And then you simply invoke whatever you need from this service. For example, calculate via REST with tenant. This is one of the services that's exposed using, that's exposed by the calculation service of SAP promotion pricing. We can verify that if we have a look here in the YAML file. So it's a very big file. Lucky for us, we don't need to read it as humans. It's a machine language. And here we see that calculate via REST with tenant is one of the operations here. Actually, it's the only one for this service, but it doesn't matter. And all these operations are directly accessible from Java code, like we see it here. So this part of this exercise is the new REST client generator in action. All right, this was the demo part. Now you should have a good first impression of how to work with the Business Application Studio. Things to take away from me as a developer: always make the difference between the laptop local and the cloud local. And secondly, of course, if you start a new project now, or if you want to try out, then go for Business Application Studio instead of Web Ide. Web Ide is the other SAP product that is actually a cloud-based IDE. Okay, this concludes the demo part. And before we open up for questions, here are some links that you can click once you get the slides. First, I have packed a tutorial how to find the SAP Business Application Studio in your cloud platform account, how to see if it's subscribed, if you are unable to subscribe it, and so on. The second link is your homework if you decide to try out. This is the GitHub repository that we worked with. And the third link is the Cloud SDK documentation portal, where you can find different things with code samples and so on Cloud SDK. As usual, if you have any kind of questions or feedback for us, we will be happy to receive it on our email that you can see here. Having said this, I want to open up for questions. So feel free to enter them into the chat or unmute yourself if you can do so. I want to thank you for your time and for your attention.
Thank you, Jordan. So you can either use the Q&A tab or the chat to ask your questions. So if we just have one question just popped up.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. The question is, can we consume multiple APIs in a single Spring Boot project? Yes, let me switch back to the Pom XML. So first of all, what does multiple APIs mean? So multiple APIs usually means that we have several of these YAML files here. So I have price calculation and then service 2, service 3, another API and so on. And we can use them together, but we will need to adjust this Maven plugin configuration, of course. Now, this example in this demo has something like a global configuration that is referencing this YAML file here. So that's why if you just copy paste this example, you will not, it won't be that easy to reference more of these, but it's also possible to have a configuration for each execution. So if I add the configuration element here, not exactly here, maybe in the goal, I'm not sure where it was. Yeah, here. If I add my configuration element here, I can move some of these configurations below. And then I will have a configuration that's defined for each execution. And this will allow me to have several executions with several configurations for each, with one configuration for each execution that's referencing the exact API file. And then, of course, if I want to generate the client, let's see what's happening. Okay, this is not good. If I want to generate the client, we have a lot of these Maven invocations then. Because right now you see that this one is generating the PP client, which is exactly this execution. If I had another execution for generate API XYZ client, then I would need another invocation here. So this way I'm able to use different APIs. I hope that answers the question. No, we don't have an example on GitHub. I will forward this to my colleagues to include an example on our documentation. So if you download the slides later, you can go to the SAP Cloud SDK documentation portal. And from there you have different examples. I don't have it on GitHub right now, unfortunately. Okay, any other questions? Okay, you have emailed the team, perfect.
Great, so I think we're good. Thanks a lot, Jordan. I'll be posting this recording in the SAP Community Calls page. Thank you everyone for joining today.
Thanks from my side too.